Hey guys, welcome back. Today I wanted to do another one of those back to basics videos that I said I was going to continue doing. So here I am. Today I'm going to be talking about the basics about face brushes and basically the tools you use to apply the makeup on your face. So I'm going to make this as quick as possible because I know that if you're watching this, you are a beginner, and so you don't want to watch a 30-minute video on brushes because that's really freaking boring. So if you want to find out the basics of what to use, I got an email. It's an email about housing. Alright. Okay, so anyways, if you want to find out the basics about brushes and how to apply the makeup on your face, what tools to use, then go ahead and please just keep on watching. Alright, so I'm going to start with face brushes. So face brushes, me personally, this is what I think, you don't need a lot of brushes. Some people have so many and they're all different shapes and I'm like, you don't really need that much. This is what I have for face brushes. Okay, it may look like it's a little much, but it really is not. If you think about it, I only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I already lost count, 6, 7, 8, 9. I don't even have 10 brushes in here. And I don't use all of them. Actually, for my full face, I probably only use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of these. Actually, this is also considered a face tool. It's not a brush, but it is probably one of the most important tools, honestly, in my opinion, because I use it for every kind of foundation, but we'll get to that later. Actually, we're gonna get to that right now because that's the first step. So when you're applying your foundation, you can either use a brush kind of like this right here. This isn't the best example because I always like to apply with a beauty sponge, but if you want to apply your foundation with a brush, it would look something like this. Usually, this is kind of like an old brush, usually be a little bit more spread out, a little bit more flat, and probably not as dense. I only ever use a brush if I'm applying a tinted moisturizer like a BB cream because it doesn't really matter about coverage and that kind of just like melts into your skin anyway, so I'll use this kind of brush. This is a Real Techniques buffing brush, they call it, and I'll use that to buff my BB creams into my face. Other than that, I would use something like this. So most of you probably have seen this before. There are memes about it everywhere. This is the Real Techniques Beauty Sponge, and I actually prefer this one over anything I've tried before. I really like the shape of it. I use this flat end here to buff my foundation into my skin and to really just swirl it around and set it in, yeah. And then I'll use this pointed end here, and I'll use that to buff in and blend out my concealer that I put either under my eyes or here on my nose and on my forehead. So the thing with beauty sponges is that most of them you can use either dry or dampened. So when you dampen it, you just run it under the sink. It expands by like double the size, and then you wring out all the water, and it's nice and squishy and it's big, and what that does is it makes it so your foundation does not soak into your into your beauty sponge. Don't say blender, it's not a beauty blender. So it doesn't soak into your beauty sponge as much, so you're not wasting as much product. This is a must-have in my tool collection for my face. Moving on, so I talked about this. That same brush actually just looks, it's like a little like older version, a Real Techniques buffing brush. I will also use this if I have something like either my contour, my bronzer, and my blush, and it looks kind of like not blended in enough. If I need to blend that out, I will use this. I'll go in with a light hand because it is a little dense, but I don't really use this one that often. Next we have face powder. So this is setting powder, whether it's pressed or loose. So what I'll first do is I will use this brush right here. It is another Real Techniques contour brush, and I'll actually use this to set under my eyes because I can really get under my eye and like into my inner corner. And I'll also use it to set my nose area because I can really make sure that I'm getting in there. This is a little bit more dense than this big guy right here. This is another Real Techniques powder brush. Real Techniques is a really awesome brand. They're not the most affordable, but the quality is really, really nice. And you can find it at like Ulta, Target, wherever. This is what I use to powder just the rest of my face. It is a lot more lighter, and obviously it is way bigger, so it takes like 2 seconds to set the rest of my face. Next is the brush that I use for my bronzer. This is a actually Wet n Wild brush. This is the only Wet n Wild brush I have. It's technically a blush brush, but I feel like it is a better shape for a bronzer brush, and it's a nice denseness, a nice thickness, and it is a pretty good shape because I don't like when it's like a complete circle, because then like when I apply my bronzer it's more in like this kind of area and not in like a circle area. So that's what I use for my bronzer. And then for my contour, so this is below your bronzer right here, or like right at the bottom part of your bronzer, you will use a contour shade, not always, but you will sometimes, and I use a actual contour brush here, and this is another Real Techniques brush. It's just that perfect size, a perfect shape to get right into, just like right in that perfect little line you got going there, and it just fits perfectly. Next we have a Real Techniques again. This is a actual blush brush, and this is what I use for my blush, and it is really perfect just to get, you know, right on the apples of your cheeks, and it is nice and fluffy so you're not packing on pigment, because you really want it to look, what's the word, diffused and like spread out. Next, I have this e.l.f. small tapered brush, and this is what I use for my highlighter. It's pretty dense actually, but it's really soft. Actually, it's not that dense. Oh yeah, it's really not that dense. But I just think it's like the perfect size and the perfect shape just to get right onto that cheekbone area right there. All right, next we have eye brushes. Now, eye brushes there are a lot of eye brushes out there, so I'm just gonna go over the basics of what you would need. So first, the most important thing is a fluffy blending brush. So this is to get either right into your crease and above it or below it, or over your whole eyelid if you're setting it. So my go-to right now is actually an Amazon brush. A lot of these are off of Amazon. They're a collection called like Kivange or something like that, but they're super cheap. I'll definitely link those down below because especially if you're a beginner, they're really worth it, and they really don't do a bad job at all. Like, that's pretty much all I use for my eye makeup. So this is a nice fluffy brush to buff in a transition shade, or if you're just kind of going for like a one shade look but you want it to be, you know, nice and blended and buffed out, this is also a nice option. This is actually really soft, so it's really nice. Next, if you're looking to get more into a precise area of your crease, I would go for something just a little bit thinner and a little bit denser, like this right here. This is by the same brand. This is a different kind of brush, but you know, at this point, if you're a beginner, it doesn't really matter whether it's synthetic or whether it's a real brush. So this is just a little bit denser, and is it a little bit thicker, but also a little bit like smaller in area, so it won't kind of diffuse that color too far out. Next, you have brushes that get a little bit Next, you have brushes that get even more precisely either into your outer corner, your inner corner, or just like really nicely into that crease. For me, my favorite ones like that are, let me pull them out. So first, I have this brush right here. It is a Real Techniques, they call it base shadow brush, but it's like this really nice tapered kind of shape to it. So I really like it to get right into my crease area, or to pack stuff on the outside and then in the outer corner and then blend it out. I also like this e.l.f. blending brush right here. Again, I don't really like it for blending because it's a little bit too dense. It's actually a lot too dense for blending. It'll just literally wipe your eyeshadow right off. But this is for packing something into your crease. It again is a little bit thinner, and then it has that kind of like rounded tip there so you can get right into the crease area. And then this is by e.l.f. This is a e.l.f. blending eye brush. Again, I would not use this for blending. Like the naming that these brands do just don't make any sense. This is a lot smaller, again for me because I have smaller eyes. This is really good for me if I want to get into the crease area, to get into smaller areas on my eyes to really precisely lay down a color. Next is kind of miscellaneous. So this is a packing brush, I would call it. These Kivange ones don't have any names, but this is for packing on mostly a shimmer or a pigment. I typically put on a shimmer with my fingertips always because it just gets that color and that pigment down way more. And when you use a brush, I feel like it doesn't pick up as much pigment and it just kind of moves it around more than like lays it down. But if you do prefer using a brush and don't want to use your fingers, which I totally understand, you can go for a brush like this. It is a flat packing brush. It is very thin and flat, and you can really just pick it up and lay it down like that. And then lastly, for basic eye brushes, we have a pencil brush. This is for getting really, really precisely somewhere on your eye because it is a lot denser. You want one that's not too hard though, because if you get one that's too hard, it will more like drag your product rather than lay it on and nicely blend it into your skin. So you want something that's a little bit fluffier, probably fluffier than this one, that's why I don't use it that much, but the shape is definitely what you want for something like that. And lastly, we just have some miscellaneous things, only a few. Okay, so first we have this little thing right here. This is called a this is called a spoolie brush. This is used to fluff out your eyebrows, brush them up, brush them down, brush them wherever you want them. This is also used to blend out any eye product that you may need to do and to kind of brush it through your entire brow so it's not just like stuck on one area. And then also for brows, I have two products that I would use. Actually, one that I would use and two that people would use. So I use this one right here for my pomade kind of thing because it's really thin, really precise, and I can either use it this way and kind of like brush it through, or I can use the tip and, you know, wing out my eyebrow. So it's really nice and precise. And then other people would use something like this. These are all Real Techniques, by the way, and this is Beige Cosmetics here. Or you can use or you can use an eyebrow brush that looks like this. This is for really, really packing on pigment. I don't like to pack on eyeshadow. I keep saying eyeshadow. I don't like to pack on eyebrow pigment. I like to lay it down and then brush it out and make sure it's nice and, I keep saying diffused. I don't want to say it again, but diffusing the product. But if people really want to have a really thick, defined, and opaque eyebrow, you can use something like this. However, the thing I don't like about this one specifically is that it is too, I don't know how to hold it. It is too, like, thick. I don't know if you can tell. Yeah, you can tell like that. It's too thick to get a really precise shape on my eyebrow, so I don't prefer it, actually, at all. I don't prefer it at all. Alright, so I know I went through that so fast, but I hope you got something out of it. I hope if you're a beginner and you were kind of confused about what to use, which is totally understandable. Everyone starts somewhere. I was at the same exact point as you if you're watching this, where I just like didn't know what to use. So those are kind of your basics. I went a little bit more than just basics, but hopefully that kind of gives you an idea of what you want and what will work for you. So that is it for this Back to Basics brushes video. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, for clicking on this video, for finding my channel, for giving it a view. I really appreciate it, and I really want to share my knowledge that I have about makeup and about beauty onto you guys. So again, thank you so much, and I'll see you in my next video. Okay, bye!